Did you know that your environment, your space can support you energetically, but can also sabotage you? And this is so important, but so underrated. So today we are going to explain to how you can just use the energy in your space, how you can set up everything the right way so we will get support instead of some like blockages. My name is Slavomira Hercegova. I'm a former Feng Shui practitioner. Now I'm more like a harmony designer and a joyful creator. And my today's guest is, let me bring you on the screen. Hi, Kristy. Kristy is a
Hello.
Fizome creator. We will talk about that as well. So, hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. I'm so excited we're getting to have this juicy conversation.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that it could be like conversation because our topic and our expertise it's like basically in the same area, so we can lead that as a conversation instead of
Hmm.
interview or something.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always love to hear like overhearing somebody's conversation is kind of interesting too.
Yeah. So I would like to start with how did you get to working with a space?
Mm. I think I've always been really in tune with my surroundings. I think I kind of came into the world kind of tuned in energetically and experiencing it, a magical side of it, which led me to theater. No surprise, creating make believe worlds for make believe people. And I was always a theater kid and got into theater design. So I started with costumes and moved to New York when I was 18 to start in a combined graduate undergraduate program. Uh, and because I was there a little longer, I was there for 5 years instead of 3, doing 2 degrees instead of 1. I ended up getting to take more classes and studying set design and lighting design. And then I also got to do an exchange program to study directing. And everything when you're designing this make believe world is to tell a story. There's a story and there are these characters, and the world around them needs to express who they are, sometimes who they're not. So that had a huge impact on on creating Fizome. That's a big foundation, as well as just being aware energetically. And there were so many little things that contributed to Fizome. The lighting, one of the lighting professors I had was a pioneer in using colored lighting in Broadway theater. So I learned so much about color and the language of color and how to use it and how to use lighting. Lighting to me is painting with emotion, right? And that's,
Yeah.
this is an influence of
Yeah,
both
I love
lighting and set
yeah.
design, right?
So,
And yeah, and with costume design, it's not because I'm a fashionista. It's because I really loved diving into understanding who a character was and how to express them. And that is so much of what Fizome is for me, is expressing characters by living clients and helping them have a home, a work environment that supports having a hit show of a life. So there was all that. And then another aspect of theater that really influenced me was some of the directors I worked with while I was in New York and going to school. I was very young, so I had a lot of energy and I did not sleep much. And I designed a lot of off-Broadway and off-Broadway theater. And there were a couple of directors that I worked with that came from the dance world first. They were choreographers, dancers first, and moved into directing. And I noticed, sitting through many nights in a row of their productions, how they moved people around the set. The blocking of the actors was remarkably different than how theatrically trained directors were blocking and moving their characters around the stage. And I just, some nights I would really just, because by the time you get to a costume, the costume part, there's not as much to pay attention to in a dress rehearsal for a couple of hours. So really like paying attention how watching characters move with grace, with elegance, with purpose, with meaning really influenced me in understanding how different it feels, it looks, and of an experience it is when we move through space with positive energy flow and with negative energy flow.
This is fascinating, and this is so funny because I started like completely opposite. I started like mechanical engineering, but
Oh, right.
I wasn't enjoying that. So we uh, founded a company with my husband, and it was like interior design, and I become an interior designer, but I didn't feel energy at all. And it was like all these like practical things, how what you need in the kitchen and how it needs to be set up. And
Mhm,
but as we started to visit some exhibition, in Milano, in Italy, and it
mhm,
was so
mhm,
fascinating. And but I started to feel like something was off. Sometimes,
mhm.
the interior looked beautiful, but it was like, I don't know,
Yeah.
so it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so I started to feel like, and sometimes it felt really good, although it wasn't so like pretty or something. And
Mhm,
sometimes it was like, oh wow, but it doesn't feel good.
mhm.
So I
Yeah.
was like, there must be something. And
Mhm,
somewhere in the same time, I started to read books about feng shui, and
mhm,
it was so like mystical. And at first I didn't even connect that with this like interior, because it was like kind of, oh, put this thing here,
mhm,
and
mhm.
some
Right.
miracles happen, and
Right.
all these stories about the people like, oh, I tried everything, but and it didn't work, and then I put this here and the miracle happens. So it was so, yeah, these kind of books. And
Yes.
it was so disconnected with what I was doing. But as I started to read more about it, and it was more and more like messy for me, like I did, but I
Mhm,
didn't
mhm.
want to give up on that, because it was,
Right.
I have to know,
Right.
this is so like
Yes.
miraculous, so I have to.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah. Yeah.
studied more, but it then actually I started to like, as I was observing that more, so I started to feel like the difference in a space, and I just connected some dots. But actually I started from completely opposite
Mm.
side, that I didn't feel
Mhm.
anything. I didn't know anything about this. I just was looking at space through this practical
Right.
uh, things, and this like, how does it look like, oh, okay, it's just nice. But I didn't feel anything about this energetical meaning or
Yeah.
something. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's funny. It's like because I found those books. I found them. I had gotten married, was in a not great relationship. I was in a abusive relationship, and I in that process I had this spiritual awakening. I discovered Louise Hay and Gary Zukov. This is the early '90s, and or I guess at that point the mid '90s. And I just started finding this, and then found this community. But it really started with going like, oh, I think we probably read the same books, and it's like, okay, so if I put a three-legged gold frog in my wealth corner, and I'm like, okay. And there was so much of that like magic pill thing. Like if I do this, then this will happen. It's the same thing. Like if I take this pill, my headache will go away, or my hemorrhoids will go away, or whatever. And You know, yeah,
Did
it's
that work
so.
for you? Did that work? I'm just
No, I
no,
remember,
yeah.
you know, getting like some of the things to play around with them and sitting there with this ugly three-legged gold frog with a gold coin in its mouth. You know what I'm talking about, right? And this
Yeah,
plastic and this
exactly,
resin.
exactly.
And I'm like, oh dear Lord, I just like, oh, you know, it's like, you know, but it's like, if this is what's going to bring me, I remember putting it like back in the corner to like, kind of like, okay, if I like put it under the chair. But then what I did get was, to me, it's like, oh, okay. I'm like, so the meaning is having more money. So what does that mean? It's like, oh, I had this picture frame that had a gold frame and it had bricks. And I was like, oh, it's like follow the yellow brick road, right? And then there was this beautiful, I had a garden. Actually, I won some awards for my garden at the time. And there was a beautiful garden picture in it. And it was like, oh, there's the golden, like there's my yellow brick road to home, to this, you know, dream garden that I want to have. So that to me was like lifting me up. And that to me was so much more powerful. Um, Actually, I won the awards after I put that picture up. I didn't even realize that. I It, you know, it lifted me up, and I was like, oh, this is so much more powerful. This is so much more meaningful. How it all really, the first thing I did in my home was I felt unloved. And I thought, if I got these pictures on the walls of men adoring women, this is going to inspire him to cherish me. Like I had the kiss. I mean, what could be more cliche than Klimp's a kiss? And I also remember there was like this mermaid and a sailor, and it's like, oh my God, that's not going to work out. But I was, you know, it was that meaning. And what happened was I kept looking at those and thinking about being cherished. And suddenly I was like, okay, first of all, he's not capable of giving me that kind of love, whatever dynamic we have. And I realized I was not capable of receiving that either, my part in the thing. So it was having all these visual cues that helped me shift internally. And to me, that was so much more powerful having that than the frog that's supposed to bring me money, you know. So, I mean, not that the
Yeah.
money wouldn't be great too, but that personal empowerment of taking responsibility and learning to love myself, that to me was like the real alchemy of what was possible. And so I started playing around with it, and friends would come over, and I swear there was like an X on my floor. So they'd stop and they'd go, what did you do in here? Did you get new furniture? I'm like, no, I haven't moved anything around. And I'm like, I'm playing around with this feng shui thing, and I don't even know how to pronounce it, because nobody around me knew what I was, you know. And 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 they were like, well, I don't care what it is, come make my house feel this good. And that just to me called to something, because I always felt a little selfish going into theater design. Like I felt like I should be helping people more, like, oh, if I could only like do the thing doctors do, like blood and all that, I'd be a doctor. But so instead I became a costume designer, like, you know, costume set lighting. And it was just like, oh, here's some way I could help people. And that was how the ball really got rolling, because I was like in this theater thing, like this was my jam.
Yeah, I would like to stop a little bit
Yeah.
by this, like this frog and just these things that are from completely different culture. So
Yes.
these are symbols that, you know, or these two, and how this, for partnership, you know, this,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that word? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's
Right.
everything's for us. It's like it looks, and it always was like kitschy, you know, because that's completely different culture. So
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
and
And
it doesn't
it's,
mean that this must be this kind of thing. No, this is just a symbol of something, and
mhm,
everyone
mhm.
in Chinese culture just gets it. Like, okay, this is connected with a relationship because these two birds are living together forever, and this is it, you know. But in
Mhm.
our culture, there is completely different symbols almost for everything. So yeah, this is
Yes.
like a big misconception that
Yes.
you just have to use this Chinese thing and put it somewhere and miracle will happen. But the
Right.
point of that is something completely different, exactly as you told, that it just, if it resonates with you and it can just awaken something in you and it can inspire you, it's just a reminder, it's just a symbol, and so you can create a connection and get some, like,
Yes.
it can switch your energy into the direction you want to go, and not just look at this like, it's so doesn't fit into my room, but okay, it's
Right.
feng
Right.
shui, so I have to have it
Right.
here, like, and I have to
Yeah.
put it into some corner, so if someone come to visit me, so wouldn't see that
Right.
I have this. Yeah, so this
Right.
is a big misconception of using
Right. And
feng shui.
right. And the, and Lord knows in the beginning, I was trying to find the balance. I initially called it pretty quickly what I was doing modern feng shui when I first started, because, like, okay, I was studying Native American traditions. I had a mentor who knew that. Uh, and Vastu, which is how
Yeah,
the Indian culture, and then different religions and how they all, it was like, this is something that's a common, like, I started finding, like, okay, this is a commonality around the world of having something harmonious, like this connection. And it's amazing how it's very similar. In fact, my
yeah,
first mentor was a psychologist and studied and was in the Native American tradition, wisdom keeper. She was using the medicine wheel in people's homes just like you'd use the bagua. And then she came across the bagua and was like, oh, well, this is a little simpler, so I'll use this. But it's like you're saying, like, at the time I was living on a sandbar in New Jersey. I lived on a barrier island, and so on sand, just sand. So they're talking about, and like, okay, well, the color of earth is yellow, and it's like, not here. Like, some people where I grew up, it was more like red clay. Um, so even those associations of, like, the earth energies, and, like, you want your house to face um, to the sun, and you have the mountain behind him, like, that all that, the amount of adjustments. And then working with clients, I was often not the first feng shui consultant to come through. And it seemed like many predecessors were really good at pointing out all the problems, but not giving solutions. And it just broke my heart. We should never feel bad about our homes. We should never feel bad about our homes. Like, and I always try and spend at least half of my time pointing out what people have already intuitively done right, or done things that
yeah.
support them. Like, look at this, look at what you've done here, and look at how that is supporting your life, this part of your life that is thriving, that is amazing. Look at what you've already done, and you've figured this out. This is so important.
Yeah, and I know exactly what I are talking about, because I also was like even scared, like, oh, but here I have something, like, it's just the wrong way, and now what? Like, now I will have some misfortune, or even, oh, we will die because we have this in this corner, something missing corner or anything. I have a toilet in this area, and now we will
The,
never have money because we have a toilet. So there is like so much,
yeah.
this fear or pressure on people, like, oh, if you will So the same way how, oh, if here you put here and miracle will happen. But if that's opposite, if you have something wrong, oh, you
Yeah.
will just get some illness or you will die even. so, so many examples, in books. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. It's so heartbreaking. It's like inevitably at some point I'm gonna see a post or somebody's like, "Here's my wealth corner, and I just brought in $2,000 or $20, or I won the lottery for $250." And then there are 10 posts of everybody who either has stairs going to the basement or their toilet is in the wealth corner, and like feel completely defeated. And yeah, I don't use. I did.
Yeah.
I do think like that Bagua, we're talking about like having a wealth corner is based on the Bagua map. And I do think that there is something really beautiful to it. I started, I kind of adapted it in my journey of calling it a life map, but I have stopped using it because I really just found there's still something kind of arbitrary, and our spaces are not design, like I'm just all about the individual, like what do you need based on who you are
Yeah,
and where you come
exactly.
from, and how you're laid out. I mean, even like, how you set your desk up is like, are you left-handed or right-handed? Like that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and also somehow it looks like, or someone is trying to like create this idea that this is so powerful that it can change your destiny, but it doesn't work like this. There is so many other things you can do, and actually you should do. It's about your mindset, your intention,
Mhm.
how you feel, and what you do, and what you even do outside of your house, what kind of person you are, what are your needs and or goals, and there's so
Mhm.
many
Mhm.
things, and your space can support you or can like make it harder for you.
Mhm.
But probably this like in extreme cases, but it's more like if there is some energy in the under the house, and if it's, or in our
Mhm.
Western culture, there is, so sometimes it is toxic, to
Yep.
live in some area. Okay, but it's
Mhm.
not in which corner you have something. It's like so many things. It's not only this, and this can completely change your life. But it
Mhm.
has an impact, definitely. But if you know how to work with that, so
Mhm.
you can just benefit. And
Mhm.
it's always good to be aware of, even if there is some weak part of the home, but just work with that, and live with that, and just do the best as you can in your space, and just
Right.
don't put energy into that, like, oh, that corner, now I will be poor all my life because look at that corner. Like, so it
Right.
doesn't work like
Right.
this.
Yeah, I'm like pick you can pick your own wealth corner. If it is important to you to have a wealth corner or a wealth area or an altar or whatever it is, pick your own. Like you don't have to listen to any other fabulous ancient tradition, religion. You can pick where you want to have that connection, a reminder of abundance, what that is for you, or relationships. I mean, there's certainly like certain rooms in your home that you're going to want to focus on that more, and it's like, my gosh, bathrooms, boy, they just get a bad rap. I mean, yes, I understand that they used to be holes in the ground and not very sanitary, but I can say that I have had clients whose bathrooms alone were $60,000, $100,000. Like I would live in those. The shower stall was like felt like the size of some of my apartments in New York City when I was in college. I mean, they are glorious places now. I mean, we could just talk about what the Japanese have done with toilets. If that's not abundance, I don't know what is. Having your butt blown with warm water and a heated seat and then air dried, and you can have music that you love. I mean, like in the modern world, to me, that is freaking abundance.
Yeah, and there is so much like hope in your words. Like, you can set it wherever you want. You can do that. You have the power. It's not like, now you're done because it's
Right.
this way, and because it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had clients a long time ago. The thing that always has been like the most heartbreaking thing, that I had clients that they had a child who was, I'm trying to remember. I've been doing this like almost 25 years now. They had a child who was sick. They had a hard time conceiving, and they were told that their child's bedroom was just toxic. The word toxic was used because of the year that the roof was put on the house. Apparently, the year that your roof is, there's one school of thought that
I know.
it traps the energy in the home, and it's like a 20-year cycle.
Yeah.
So because of that, the bedroom that the baby was in was toxic and would never get healthy. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so what was the solution? And they looked at me like and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, so they told you here's the problem. What was the fix for it? Like, how are you fixing it? They're like, oh, they didn't give us a fix. They just told us that was the problem. And it's like, oh my God, like for parents to hold that energy and that belief that there is something wrong with their child's bedroom that is making it sick. And it was just, it was.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? Right? Like,
yeah, and then the problem is that if you believe something, so you are creating that. And so if you believe that it's like, wow, that's great. Here is so it's a part of that. Like you are creating energy also with your thoughts.
right,
You can set
right.
up so many things with just set
Yes.
up that intention. So
That, can I talk about that for a moment? Because that is a very big part of Fizome, is how we set up our space, because everything is talking to our mind. I realized long before I was diagnosed being a little bit neurospicy, some ADHD, quite a bit, and I actually have a brain injury. And so I started studying like how the brain worked, because I knew mine was like not average. And there were some things that were really easy for me that seemed difficult for other people, and some really simple things that are really hard for me. And so I started really studying how the brain works. And I was like, they're saying like, well, we can only hold about up to 7 conscious thoughts in our mind at a time. And then I've heard anywhere from like 50 to 90,000 subconscious thoughts a day. And most of those are triggered by our environment. And I kept seeing that over and over again. I'm like, why are we not talking about this triggered by your environment part? Oh my God. Everything that we see in our home is triggering thoughts all day long. All day long, we are seeing everything is talking to us, our subconscious mind. And the things people often say, like,
exactly.
how many clients I've said, like, they're like, oh, I don't notice that anymore. I'm like, oh, you do. Oh, you do. That thing that's broken over there, or that's a trigger for some kind of trauma, or, is telling you a really positive story that you've tucked away that's like all about the success you've had. It's telling you over and over and over again. And then as those thoughts are repeated, they
These are
become
like
actual.
symbolical affirmations,
Yes,
and you
yes,
can see that all around, and your home is like a 3D vision board, and you have
yes.
affirmation in every corner. look,
Mm-hmm,
here is
mm-hmm.
something broken. So, oh, you are not worthy to have something that is
Right,
functional.
right. And
Yeah.
repeated, it becomes
Yeah.
actual neural pathways in our brains. And those neural pathways are what become our belief systems and our values, and which empower the actions that we take, the life that we create. So we really can change our lives by working from the outside in with the intention from the
Yeah.
inside
Yeah.
out. It's this.
Maybe we can stop here and share some examples, because if your entrance door is like hard to open, and you have all the time like put more energy into that, and it's like, oh, everything is so hard in my life, and you
Mhm,
have to
mhm,
like
mhm,
push through.
mhm, mhm.
Or you can also give some example, or if just water is drops.
Dripping,
uh,
yeah. A
yeah,
leak?
dropping.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's leaks, so you are just losing even money or anything, energy, it's just leaking. And
Yeah, I think you said that really perfect. Yeah, yeah, all these
these
different
small
ways,
things.
the
Yeah,
little things, it's all these little things that are just everywhere, but also
there is a
making
clutter,
little.
and it's so overwhelming, and oh, there's my life is a mess. I'm not organized, and I just
Right.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and decluttering is also a big part of what I do within Fizome. And I created my own process for years because my brain doesn't work the way, like Marie Kondo's brain works. Although now we've come to find out that she realizes after having 3 kids, like, oh, yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've always said,
Now I
like,
feel better. Now I feel better. As she realized that, because I felt really bad, like, oh, this just doesn't work for me. I'm just not able to keep my home like this. Like,
right, right,
what's
yeah,
wrong with me? Nothing.
right,
It's just,
yeah. I mean,
if you
I
have
often joke,
kids,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, even if you don't have kids and your brain just isn't wired, like,
yeah,
organizers that's how their brains work. They just see things and they're like, and my brain is not a 1, 2, 3 kind of brain. It's a red 7 purple
yeah. I
elephants
also,
cheese sandwich person. So, which is, has, it's a lot of fun, but trying to get some things done. So I needed to come up with just a way. I found, like, I was always, when I'd move, I'd like always put it off to the last minute. I had to figure out how, like, oh, all these different ways I'm getting distracted. Let me come up with some hacks on these, like some practical, some energetic, some, like, we naturally feel more comfortable, we're talking about energy, when we flow clockwise. So if I work through a room clockwise rather than bouncing around like a ping pong ball, I will have a sense of accomplishment, because if I don't do that, I can work for 3 hours and feel like I've made more of a mess and I've nothing accomplished, and then I'm demoralized and don't keep going. But if I leave a path of actual success, then I can keep going. And it's a lot of mental stuff. So yes, there's like this part of like, what is the energy we're calling in, what are we attracting, and then making room for it to create this vacuum for it to come in.
yeah. There's so many things we can talk about, and hopefully we can even do more conversation on a
Mhm.
specific topic. But one thing, like before we wrap up this session, I would like to ask you to share. I can remember in one of your emails, but by the way, you can write a book, just put together your emails. I love to get your emails. I
Oh,
will
thank you.
share a link
Thank you.
in description, so people can subscribe. But you were describing the feeling, you are going to work and you are coming to your desk, and how you feel. And I was like, oh, even I don't feel like this, but yes, that's right. You just we forget, we just feel normal, or it's like you don't think
Right.
about how do you feel, but it's please, please.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love writing those emails. It's our space. It's I don't remember like the set it and forget it. Like it's so easy. And right now I'm really finding like I love to work with like conscious creatives, spiritual entrepreneurs who work at home. This work at home balance between living in our home and working in our home is so challenging because we need such different energy and focus and trying to flip our brain into like that like work mode. This is what I'm doing to shine, to help, to be of service in the world of what I have to do. And you've just come from the kitchen where you're thinking like, God, I have to take the trash out, it smells, or there's that pile of kit dish, like in your brain. And then you're walking through the hallway and you see the dust bunnies flying around and like all this stuff in the pictures, and and then you're supposed to come in and sit down and like snap into work. So if we can set up our space that you instantly, first of all, that even where you sit, you feel empowered, that your body, that's where I like to start. And I do have a free class I'm happy to offer people. Actually, you can get it in my free Facebook group called Haven of My Enlightenment, but it's called Desk for Success. And it's, one of the tools I use is like, we listen to the body. How does your body feel? Rather than saying, because for some people, like that commanding position, now most of the time that is what works, but sometimes there's more than one commanding position for where your body feels most comfortable. If we can come and sit down and feel empowered and aligned and in focus, and that's where the first thing that we see when we walk into a room can help us shift our energy, shift our mindset, be aligned with the purpose, the intention of what that room is about. This is what I call my fizz point. The first thing I see when I walk in. And this is for me as much as it's for you, because I see it. And for me, the metaphor of it is like every single one of these beautiful colored lights is another soul that I get to connect with. So when I come in, no matter what's going outside, I come into this area, I am always amazed at how much I get done. And I sit down and I'm like in my Fizome zone bubble. It does not take a whole lot for me to be clicked in. And sometimes, I'm like, not so much. And I actually have a little rug that I stand on that helps me like reconnect and keep going. It's just like sometimes I need to just stand up and like get in that energy and come back. So it's having the space that supports how we need to feel and think and be so that we can be our best selves, so we can shine our light into what we're here to do.
Yeah, and it is so important to set up your energy, because even if it's like organized and practical, but this feeling, and there is so many layers, like how far you can go with this. It could be like, okay. It could be like, yes, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Right,
So
right. And it's ever evolving. There's ever stuff that I'm constantly changing things around. Now, granted, there's also part of that is to keep the dopamine. As a person with ADHD, my brain doesn't make a lot of dopamine. So I need what now they call dopamine decor, but it's like little hits of joy that keep me focused, that keep me enjoying things. And I also like, this is like a new phase of my life, of my business, of sharing Fizome. I'm very excited about it. So moving things around helps my brain go, right, things have changed. Oh, the pens aren't there, they're over here. I even do that at least once a year. I move like where the forks and the spoons are in the silverware drawer, because I like to have to stop, because my brain is like, oh, there's the neural pathway. That's where the forks are. And then I pick it up and it's a spoon. It's like, nope. Things are different now. Like I play little games with myself that way.
yeah, and this is another topic I love to talk about, these like hints of joy and have it in a space. But for now, I would like to yeah, we could go for hours, I know. We will definitely we'll have another conversation and about specific topics, because I can see that
Mhm.
you're passionate about the space, and I'm also
Yes.
passionate
Yeah.
about that, and it's really important. So I believe we can support a lot of people in just changing a little bit their environment and
Yeah.
become more, focused, joyful, work with ease, feel more harmony in their home. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't have to put, a three-legged gold frog in your, bell's corner to do it, and, like, even when I talk about, people are like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I help people connect home and soul," and everyone, once in a while there's somebody else, "So you do feng shui?" And I'm like, "No, no, I do Fizome," which is a feng shui alternative, a westernized, very, very intuitive, personal to you approach to living in our home.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like food. There's Chinese food. Well, this is like Western fusion food.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's at the end of the day, it's all about the energy, how energy
Mhm.
flows, and you
Yes.
can use different tools, but
Mhm.
work on the same thing. So
Yeah.
just feng shui is one of the tools, but you can
Right.
do that, even use
Mhm.
another tool, and that's it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And look,
yeah,
I have clients that are like, "This is my wealth cord, and look how fabulous." I'm like, "Awesome. I honor that." Like, I honor the journey that has gotten you to this layer, and whatever follows after that.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank you.
much for this
Yeah,
conversation.
it's so much fun.
And I'm looking forward our next one.
Me
So,
too. Me too.
yeah,
Thank you.
I would like to encourage the audience. If you have some questions, please write down in the comments so we can answer specific
Mhm.
questions. And yeah, see you the next time. Bye. Thank you for the
Bye.
conversation.
Thank
Bye.
you.